thank you so much again for taking the time to chat with me. We're talking about the frustration of seeing the Labor-Bligh government do an absolutely terrible job of running Queensland, both with infrastructure and with finances, and despite a really poor performance, she got given a gift politically, although it was a curse for Queensland, in the way of a couple of natural disasters, first the flood and then Cyclone Yahtzee, giving her a bounce in the polls, which prompted you to come back.
Yeah.
Something I remember from the campaign was not only the politically unprecedented logistics of an opposition leader running for Premier from outside of Parliament, but also an unprecedented level of personal bitterness and bile and completely fabricated, unjustified mudslinging at not only the political identity, but his wife, his family, his wife's family. It was merciless and incredibly gross to watch.
Yeah. And look, that very negative campaign actually, in my view, was very effective. Yes, it didn't quite work because very close to the election, Anna Bligh was asked by a particular journalist, a female journalist, who, I'm very thankful that she pursued it, but she kept on asking the Premier in a press conference, well, what have you got? And finally, the Premier said, well, I've got questions, I don't have any evidence. And that sort of, at that point, the pendulum swung. What people don't, I think, get, particularly all the so-called commentators, is that I was fundamentally damaged as a political figure. I'd been the popular Lord Mayor of Brisbane, gone through the floods, I'd done 7 years in the job, delivered a whole lot of things that I'd promised, and yet by the time I became Premier, there were big question marks. Or the other way, I have this image of myself going to office, sort of dripping with manure, mud. Yeah, so that's what they did to me. And then they continued to work on that. And so, particularly the current Deputy Premier, Trad, continued with a relentlessly negative campaign over 3 years. And the same members of the Queensland media who were there then in the campaign, were quite happy to continue on with that same thing. So my reflections on it are that you've got to contrast it with the way, say, Tony Abbott stands in front of a sign saying ditch the wetch, and the media and the commentary pile in on him, whereas Premier Anna Bligh and a whole section of the media are happy to run all sorts of stories about a candidate from the right, and it's all okay. It's just, look, what's he getting upset about? It's all right, and Bligh's just received one of the nation's highest honours. So all's forgiven. She's reborn now. The bankers, working. A person who doesn't believe in capitalism is now, I suspect, representing the banks of Australia.
It does seem like the media gives the left a blank check to be as deceptive and deceitful as they want to be.
Well, we're shortened right now. I mean, we shortened in the federal campaign last year with the Mediscare thing, and that's just been dismissed as a tactic, as opposed to fundamentally dishonest.
There should have been political and probably personal freedom consequences for that.
Exactly.
That was fraud.
And he's doing it again. In fact, he's arguably the most divisive opposition leader we've ever seen in my lifetime. So I'm going to be 54 in a few days' time. So,
happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. And he's the most divisive opposition leader we've seen. We heard a lot about Tony Abbott dividing Australia.
He was always political. Whereas
this bloke is basically saying to a whole group of people, you've got to hate anybody with money.
Or anybody that disagrees with us.
If Shorten ever turns up at this place, I hope someone points out the contradictory nature of what he says. I mean, on one hand, he would come into a place like this and say, we want startups, we want technology, we want the new economy. Well, but meanwhile, he wants to tax the bejesus out of everyone who actually might, heaven forbid, make some money in the new economy.
That's right. Yeah, the recent announcements about targeting personal trust income distribution, another blatant tax grab, because all they know how to do is tax people who are doing well and give it away on programs that are unnecessary and superfluous. For example, Anna Bligh promised to deliver 100,000 jobs and then proceeded to put them on our credit card where they weren't needed. Not actual genuine increase in productivity in the state, but...
And it's happened again since we left office, since we were booted out.
And everybody shoots the messenger.
The numbers have gone up again. Yeah.
Look, I 100% back the necessity of slashing, if not halving, the public sector in Queensland. And I'm sure it's a simple, easy answer. If you have regrets on how you did it, the answer would be yes. But go deeper. How would you do it differently? Because it needed to be done. I'm sure there's no backing away from that. But would you do it differently? Would you do it slower? How would the marketing and the politics of that change?
I think I have to make it a bit broader than that, because it's really what you're asking is what actually caused the Newman government to be thrown out. And the answer is a whole lot of things.
That's right.
And if some of them had been removed, would have crossed the line. Indeed, during the election campaign itself, if, for example, we hadn't had Alan Jones sort of running interference every day, which stopped, it didn't actually hurt us, by the way, in the seats where there was gas and coal issues. I mean, we won all those.
Wow.
What it did is it stopped us getting a message out. So if Alan Jones hadn't have been there, we would have got across the line. If Clive Palmer hadn't have been doing his things, I mean, people should reflect on these names, by the way. These are the people who are, who really did, make the difference in a negative way for us and our campaign. So there's just two examples. Tony Abbott, the knighthood thing, if that hadn't have been there again. So
it was a bit distracting.
So during the campaign, there were things that actually stopped us getting across the line. But during the 3 years, I mean, the only thing I'd do differently about the job cuts is I'd get the Treasurer to make the announcement and I'd force him to go out and talk about it all the time, and I wouldn't. Because I mean, what happened then was, it was very much on my shoulders. But, other things that...
I want to talk about that point, because Bob Hawke had Paul Keating, John Howard had Peter Costello, but you took the full brunt of every unpopular decision in your government. And you weren't a novice to politics. You'd been in the Lord Mayoralty for a long time, but I think there's some failures that should be answered for within the team that you had. That they didn't say, "Hey, let me go out and take the flak on this. I'll own it, and you can be Mr. Progress, Mr. Action, get things done." Feel free to comment further on people, but were there any other things that let you down, either in the party or in the parliament?
Look, just
like
going
being
back,
left out alone.
just what you've just said. At the end of the day, it all comes back to the leader. So you got the control levers in front of you. You got to decide how to play it. So at the end of the day, I do take responsibility for those sorts of things. But it'd have been good if a couple of people had been willing to stand up and deal with those sort of things.
If I was a tad more cynical, I might suggest that the current leader of the opposition has benefited by his conspicuous absence and low profile in those days when you were taking all the heat.
Well, some people have said that. Well, we'll have to see. But he's in the seat now, so he can't really not escape those sorts of things. But and during the election campaign, that's starting to heat up, because I think we are in a campaign now. What they will do in the Labor Party is throw back at him things that the government led by myself did. So that's very much going to be the case. Some other things though, just and they're sort of covered in Gavin King's biography on myself, is you sort of as a leader of a party, in the parliamentary wing, you are also given a set of candidates by the party, and so two people that particularly it was unfortunate that the party pre-selected and they were warned against. One was Dr. Chris Davis, who had the electorate of Stafford, and the other one was our friend up at Redcliffe.
Yes, Scott Driscoll.
Scott Driscoll. So, I know for a fact that the LNP were warned about both those individuals and that they would be challenging for the party, to say the least. And so, you know, you get that and it's served up. And I've got to say that at times, in more recent times, I've had a sort of a rather wry smile on my face, because sometimes you get the impression from, say, people in the federal sphere in the party that they think, oh, you know, those Newman government people, they really didn't know what they were doing. Well, they've got a few problems of their own. That's politics today. If you're Matt Canavan and the citizenship, or the lady down in Melbourne with her citizenship questions, or a whole host of issues, it's politics in 2017 is exceptionally difficult.
Let's
what does annoy me today is the sort of the way that our government was somehow seen in some circles as not getting it together. You know, we did pretty well, and we, at the election, when we were lost, 41.3% primary vote, last poll, news poll for Queensland for the federal coalition, they're down to 33%.
Yeah.
You know, so in all the things that we did, we never went down there, and there's a lesson in that which they're not listening to. And the lesson is you can be committed to your values, you can make tough decisions, you can make them a bit better than we did,
yes,
and deliver. You know, you can do better in the politics, but you don't have to be at 33% primary.
Yeah.
That's when you've sold out. That's when people are deserting you because they're going to find something as an alternative that's more in tune with people's values.
Yep. Let's talk about one of those troublesome MPs that has popped his head up, and you've mentioned in a recent tweet about the federal government's problems after we take a short break. Thanks for watching. If you really enjoyed that video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Have a look at this great video next, and check out the website for even more interesting articles and episodes later.